Hello everybody. Today I will be talking about detection and tracking of ocean eddies. Before we get into the topic, let us discuss about something called as the ocean fronts. Ocean fronts are basically regions that separate are regions that separate regions of different temperature and salinity. As you can see in the diagram, the green, red, yellow are different regions with different temperatures, and the boundary that is separating them is called as a front. These regions are usually regions of convergence, that is, the water will meet at this end. These regions are usually characterized by vertical circulations, and because of these vertical circulations, these regions are of high bioproductivity. Now let us get into eddies. Eddies are basically circular currents of water. They are also called as the cyclones of the ocean. Eddies that are about 100 to 500 km in diameter and that last for days, 2 months, are called as mesoscale eddies. These eddies are unpredictable or episodic in nature. Few of the world famous currents, such as the Gulf Stream or the Kuroshio current and the Vilas current, in this we can see this eddies. Now this is just a GIF that is showing the different eddies, and as you can see the diagram, the rotation motion are the different eddies that are formed. Now the eddies are of two types. One is the warm core eddy. So in this eddy, basically there is warm water and that is surrounded by cold water on the outside. It has a high pressure in the center and it is associated with downwelling. So downwelling basically means that the water is pushed downwards at the center. So the outside cold region is at a height and the center is a little lower. The second is a cold core eddy. It is basically the opposite of a warm core eddy, where in this the cold center is surrounded by warm water, and so the center is at a lower pressure and it is associated with upwelling. So upwelling basically means that the water in the center will rise. So the center is at a higher height and the outside is at a lower height. Now, why is this important? So, basically, eddies break the layer of stratification in the ocean. That is, it enables the mixing of layers between the upper and the lower layers. They transport water heat over long distances and help in mixing of the ocean. The eddies have vigorous circulation, so are of importance to naval and commercial operations. And it is well documented and it is well known that such eddies damage oil rigs or oil platforms that are present in the ocean. They also transport nutrients and other chemicals that helps regulate the marine ecosystem. Now, detection of eddies. The eddies detection algorithms are classified as following. The first kind is the algorithms that attempt to identify the rotational flow. So we know that the eddies are rotating, so these will only focus on the rotational flow of the eddy. The second one is that attempt to identify the closed sea level anomaly contours. So this basically talks about the outer edge of the eddy. So we can just imagine there is this ocean and then there is this curving pattern in the center, that is the boundary of the eddy. So these algorithms try to identify and differentiate between the normal ocean and these curving boundaries. And the third method, which are basically a combination of the above two methods. Now, each of these algorithms have their respective advantage and disadvantages, and that is why it is basically a trade-off when we use them. Now, these are some of the detection methods that I will be talking about. First is the Okuba-Weiss method, or OW for short form. Now, OWS and OWR square are basically methods that have improved that are simply improvement of the Okuba-Weiss method. The fourth method is the Wavelet method. The fifth is the SLA method, and the sixth is the vector method. Now, the Okuba-Weiss method. An basically in this method, an eddy is defined as the region where W is less than minus W. The threshold W is defined as W naught equal to A sigma W, where W naught is the spatial standard deviation of W in the region and A is a constant. In a global perspective, closed contours of W have the following value, and this is considered as an eddy. The center of the eddy is defined to be the maximum or minimum sea surface height within the W contour. The eddy diameter is defined as that of the circle with area equal to that of the enclosed W contour. Sea surface height, either wholly or negative or wholly positive, within such contours indicate cyclonic or anticyclonic polarity respectively. OWS method. This method, the noise in the resulting W field makes it difficult to identify mesoscale eddies. To overcome this issue, the W field is smoothed with half power filter cutoffs. The rest method is same as the OW method. Now the OWR square method. This approach judges the fitness of an eddy based on the similarity to its characteristics to an idealized Gaussian eddy. The parameter R square describes this similarity. Wavelet method. Wavelet analysis offers a new approach for viewing and analyzing various large datasets by dividing information according to scale and location. The application is after defining the wavelets, they can be sorted as a function of their coefficients, and only the greatest 10% of the coefficients can be retained as eddies. Now, one of the most important methods, that is the SLA method. From the maximum data, we search the closed contours of the SLA for anticyclonic eddies. The searching starts with the initial SLA criterion and the search ranges is increased by interval. Anticyclone contain at least one SLA maximum. Now, different tracking algorithms that are used. Utilization of KLT tracker with sparse optical flow estimation. The KLT tracker is a feature tracker that traces distinctive points over time based on the motion field of optical flow estimations. The equation that we see is basically the spatial and temporal equation that is being described by the KLT tracker. As you can see, x plus delta is basically the variation in the x coordinate with respect to time. Similarly, it is the variation in y coordinate and also the time. The t plus delta t is the change in time. A drawback of the KLT tracker is a potential mismatch of tracked eddies due to their similar pattern, since all detections are tracked independently. A convolutional LSTM network. These networks are able to model spatio-temporal dependencies. This method is capable to learn an appropriate eddy representation and distribution of the eddy population in order to track intense eddy signals. Moving on. This is one of the most important method. It is the overlapping method and it is used widely because it is easier to execute and it is computationally very less expensive as compared to the previous two methods. So basically what we are seeing is two different time steps and the different observations that can be made. So the previous step is the first time and the current step is the next time step. So we are talking in terms of two time steps, time 1 T1 and time T2, and the different things that can be tracked using this method are as follows. So continuation, an eddy from the previous time step corresponds to just one eddy in the current time step. So basically there is no change in the eddy. Amalgamation, it basically means to merge. So when two eddies from the previous time step correspond to one eddy in the current time step. So by this we can understand two probably smaller eddies have merged to become one larger eddy. Creation or birth. An eddy in the current time step does not correspond to any eddies in the previous time step. This basically means that this is just a newly formed eddy or a developing eddy. Dissipation or death. An eddy from previous time step does not correspond to any eddies in the current time step. So this basically means that the eddy that was being tracked is no longer active or has totally dissipated. And the last is bifurcation or split. An eddy from the previous time step corresponds to two eddies in the current time step. So this basically means that eddy, a larger eddy, has split into two smaller eddies. Now the application. This algorithm, the last overlapping algorithm was used, and are the results that were obtained. We can see amalgamation, bifurcation, and merge and separation that we were talking about in the previous slide. So to conclude, all the detection methods mentioned define the eddy center and boundary via the same procedure. High intensity and circular shape, our results are obtained and are tracked by the Okuba-Weiss R2 method. The methods that basically focus on the peripheral area of an eddy are the WA method and the SLA method. The number of eddies obtained from vector method tends to be underestimated, and it is overestimated in the wavelet method. And the convolutional LSTM reveals a plausible and robust preliminary results over the KLT tracker method. So that's it. Thank you.